Virginia's Attorney General is going to investigate after at least 13 schools across 3 districts withheld merit awards from top students, all in the name of equity. The controversy first erupted when parents accused officials at Thomas and Jefferson High School for Science and Technology in Fairfax County of holding back notifications until after the college application cycle. So if you got a merit, nobody knew. It couldn't even help you. They said it was going to even the playing field and avoid hurting people's feelings who weren't, advancing as much. In some cases, parents say the notifications never arrived at all. The district initially called it a, quote, a one-time human error. But now we know that's simply not the case. Governor Youngkin now is going after the district, saying, quote, they have a maniacal focus on equal outcomes for all students at all costs. Meanwhile, Virginia's Attorney General, as I mentioned, says no child should be subjected to such treatment.
What we want is we want to demand excellence, and we want our students to not have this, quote, war on merit. And what we have seen, unfortunately, in some areas of the country is what I call woke racism, which is reverse discrimination against the wrong groups in those individuals' minds. And so we want to make sure that in this country, everybody has an equal playing field and everybody can achieve their dreams. And we certainly don't want anybody to be held back because of who they are and their ethnic background.
Oh my goodness, that's like the definition of who we are as a country.
Exactly.
Who's trying to break it? Look, I know your little ones are young, they're not in school yet, but I love talking to people preparing for the future.
Exactly. So I have a 3-year-old named Kinsley, who's watching, by the way. So
hi, Kinsley.
Yes. And we have one on the way, too. And the thing is, even when she's playing her little games, I'm always like, hey, if you don't do it right and you lose, you lost. But we're going to try again, and next time maybe we'll win. But I'm not going to teach that, you just keep trying and then you always get a trophy or always win. Because we have to teach kids that, look, achievement is something you have to work hard to get the results that you want, right? I mean, that's honestly what makes America America. And so when we see these school districts going around saying, oh, everybody gets a trophy, or in this case, no one gets a trophy because we don't want to offend anyone, it has really bad effects. Because, I mean, you're coddling children, and then what happens when they enter the real world and they learn that, life isn't fair?
Amy, the thing that bothers me most about this is the fact that no one's allowed to rise and be exceptional and be celebrated. That we all have become just a bunch of people being tolerated around each other and by each other.
We're seeing it all across the board. In the schools, you barely have to show up anymore. Everybody gets time after time to try and take tests so that they can pass along. But what's worse is that if you do succeed in any way, it's almost a punishment of sorts. And this is the epitome of punishment, because when you don't allow people to take their National Merit Awards and put them to further their education, you're taking money away from people's families. These parents want to be able to support their children. To me, this is a case where it could be a lawsuit, and you could go back and say, you didn't allow us to do this, and this jeopardized the college funding for the further education of our children. And I saw the school board meeting where the parents were standing up and saying, this is so unfair. We were not given the opportunity to fight for our children and represent what they've worked so hard for. You would think that the educators want them to succeed in that way to show how they're preparing their students.
What is so cutting about what you just pointed out is the fact that if you are low income or diverse and racially or culturally diverse, this works against the very people that they say they're fighting for, which is how I know they don't mean it. They don't really mean equity. Yep. What they mean is equity that's politically tilted in their direction.
Right.
It's really, really harmful. It doesn't matter what background you come from. If you're working hard and you don't get that merit, you're missing out on the opportunity to get the reward that should be there waiting for you.
They're using kids to try to score political points. And I think that's the worst part of all of this, is that you're literally robbing these kids because you want to score political points, and how politics works these days. That's why my wife and I, one thing we're doing, we take a hard look at these school systems to see where are we going to actually have our kids go to school, because we don't want some of this nonsense.
To be victimized.
To be victimized at an early age.
You do have to plan. You do have to think about it. You mentioned your home state, which I share with you, which is Arizona. And I was reading this morning that the brand new governor, Katie Hobbs, is taking a look at rolling back something that people really liked, and it had to do with the choice that you're talking about, Jeremy. Where you put your kids, how to run away from the woke.
Yeah, no, and I can't believe we're saying that in Arizona of all states. And there's a huge uproar. You're right in Arizona about this. But I think the trend that you mentioned as well is what's so disconcerting about this whole thing is this equity consultant, which, by the way, according to Virginia Attorney General Jason Morales' office, $500,000 was paid out. $500,000. If I was a taxpayer, that state would be so angry right now just at the fact that you said somebody to be an equity coordinator in general. But I think what's happening is you're right. It's the go woke trend that we're seeing with so many places. Again, I'm shocked about Katie Hobbs in Arizona. We'll see where that goes. But that is why somebody like Glenn Youngkin is now the governor of Virginia, because of the mess of that education system in general.
And last I checked, the governor maybe has more power than the equity coordinator.
Maybe, I think so.
Maybe, but remember, the Constitution in Virginia was amended so that the school boards actually had more power than the parents. So there, unfortunately, I think it's a little bit backwards that the good governor is trying to surmount right now. Absolutely, it's actionable. Of course, these are lost opportunity costs for these children. The scholarship loss is real. And the problem with scholarships is that it is supposed to account for economic disparities, right? And so the fact that then a woke contingency comes in and says, here's what this means, and it doesn't mean that, or even if you are economically disadvantaged but don't have another box checked, that means you don't count. That is so patently unfair. You know, my mom, by the way, was a presidential scholar just a few years ago when she was in high school in California. And to this day, that certificate, the photo of her shaking the president's hand as a high schooler, that is on the walls of our childhood home. It's a source of pride. And accomplishments by one student, it's not at the loss of another.
Exactly.
You can succeed and be a champion in so many different ways. You can shine brightly in so many different ways with the gifts that God has given you individually without it meaning negatively or impacting other students negatively, and they're losing out on that lesson greatest of all.
That's why I love sports so much for kids. You know, whatever their sport is. And we just happen to be talking about the intellectual sport of academics. And it really challenges us. I love the way you put that. All right, coming up.